If you are an upper elementary teacher, I have a question for you. Do you genuinely enjoy teaching phonics? If you're saying no right now, then it's probably for one of the two reasons. One, you don't feel like you have the knowledge base to be able to teach phonics effectively. Or two, it's because you don't have the resources to help guide you in making sure that you're teaching your lessons effectively. Well, in this video, I got you because I have the answer to one of those problems. There is so much to think about when we have to instruct students on how to learn to read. And so having resources that are going to be authentic, simple, but also meaningful and explicit can really change the way that you build your phonics lessons. Now, as an upper elementary teacher, and we're talking 3rd through 6th grade, your students are really going to vary when it comes to their academic readiness and their understanding of phonics, because you're going to have some students who don't require explicit phonics lessons, and then you're going to have others who are still struggling readers who need to have more opportunities for practicing those explicit phonics lessons. And this is where small group comes into play, because you can utilize your small group instruction to really ensure that you're providing those explicit opportunities for students to be able to practice and to learn and acquire those skills. So where do we find the resources? How do we make things look when it comes to small group instruction for phonics in upper elementary? Well, I'm going to talk you through some various different resources and activities that you can very easily incorporate and do inside of your classroom. Now, before we jump into the activities, there is something that I want you to keep in mind as we go through this, is that when you're supporting students who are struggling readers in upper elementary, there is a continuum in which we present various graphemes and phonemes, which are the sounds and the spellings, to students. So this progression is going to ensure that they feel confident enough in order to be able to blend these and read the various words that we're going to be presenting to them. Now, this could be that all the way in kindergarten, they're starting with CVC words, they're focusing on short vowel sounds, moving into long vowel sounds with the consonant E, going into blends, into digraphs, and then more complicated vowel teams that we start to see as we start to get into more of the advanced phonics side. Now, for this video, the resources that I'm going to be sharing with you are all based on the vowel teams that students are going to be presented with when it comes to upper elementary. And the reason why is because typically in upper elementary, where we start to see the disconnect with students and the struggle with students is with vowel teams. So if you look at the 6 different types of syllables, you have open syllables, closed syllables, you have consonant or the silent E syllables, you have the vowel teams, then you have the consonant LE syllable, and then you have another syllable that's in there that I can't remember at the moment. But with all the different types of syllables, typically the one where students start to get disconnected is right around the middle, and that's going to be those vowel teams. The vowel team seems to just completely throw kids off. And the reason for this is because vowel teams can be categorized into 2 different categories. One category is going to be predictable, meaning we know that the sounds that they're going to make based on the location in which they fall within the syllable. And I'll show you some examples of this in a little bit. And then we have unpredictable vowel teams. And with unpredictable vowel teams, there's really no rhyme or reason for why they make certain sounds. We can't tell when it's going to make a certain sound, but we can tell you that it's going to most likely be this sound in the majority of cases of words that are presented when we're reading. However, they do have other sounds that they could make, and it doesn't matter where they fall within that syllable of a word for why they make certain sounds. So that tends to really throw kids for a loop. And if they don't have a very solid foundation for the other skills, everything seems to just fall apart for them. And so for upper elementary teachers, focusing in on those vowel teams and really making sure that students feel comfortable with those vowel teams, giving them strategies for how to blend, how to break down words using syllables is really going to be important, especially when you have struggling readers. However, no matter where you are on this continuum of teaching kids how to read, a lot of the activities that you see here are going to be explicit, systematic, and they are going to be authentic and simple keyword, always a keyword here, simple activities that you can be incorporating into your small group lessons to be able to support students along this process of acquiring these new skills. So let's go ahead and jump into some of the activities and resources that can help to support you as a literacy teacher. Now, I do want to make a quick mention that if you have not seen the video where I talk about why is it so hard for students to be able to learn how to read or write in English, then make sure to check out that video. I'm going to leave it linked here for you. It also comes with a free resource that can help guide you a little bit more as you go through this process. So, looking at the very first item that you see here, this is a Val Team Sound cheat sheet. Now, if you are a Bridging Literacy community member, all of the resources that you're going to see within this video are accessible to you, along with some training videos that are going to help benefit you when it comes to teaching syllables and supporting your struggling readers and or all of your students in the long run. So be sure to check out the community for those resources. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me at bridget@bridgingliteracy.com. But for the Val Teams cheat sheet, basically what this does is it takes you through all of the different vowels along with the sounds that they make and sometimes give you references. So here's a really good example. So if we look at the AI and AY sound, they both make the long A. So they say A. Now, they come in very specific locations for the words, which makes them a predictable vowel team. And so the AI comes at the beginning or the middle of syllables, not words. Don't say words, it comes in syllables. And then the AY usually comes at the end of syllables. And so this is important because as students are learning to acquire the AI-AY pattern, if they have that understanding of where it's referenced and knowing that it's predictable, and we can always tell depending on where that A falls within that syllable, to tell me which spelling it is, that's going to be really beneficial for them. However, as you start to get into some of these other vowel teams, they start to become more complicated, meaning this is where the unpredictableness goes. If you are just teaching these for the first time, it is highly recommended that you work on predictable vowels first and then go into your unpredictable. So make sure your students have a solid understanding and foundation with those predictable vowel teams before you move on to the next ones. So this is a cheat sheet to kind of help guide you through that process if you are inside of the community, and it comes with multiple pages there. Now, we're talking about activities themselves that you can do within small group. So one of the things that we released inside of the community is going to be decodables. Now, these are not decodables for all of the vowel teams that are out there. However, they are going to support you through the majority of those vowel teams that you are going to find within the English language. So if students have these, they are most likely going to be able to decode a much larger base of words than if they weren't able to have any of them. So inside of each of those decodable sets are going to be a number of some different resources. Now, we worked with an author who wrote each of the passages for us. So they are decodable and they are put within a sequence. So make sure that you are following that sequence that's found within the Bridging Literacy community. So let's talk about what the goal here is. The whole goal for any student is to become a proficient reader. So at the end of the day, our why for all of the activities that we're doing is to build to the point that they are reading the text that we are giving them. That is what we want to be able to have them do. We want them to be able to read it and also write it. But we also have to come up with some activities that can help to support students along that process and that journey. So how do we build that for our students? Well, we could do this in a number of ways. And each of these is going to be really important and systematic in making sure that they can get to that text and read it fluently and accurately. So one of the things that we provide within this resource is going to be a list of words that have that pattern, but also bringing in multiple syllables. So again, we're working with upper elementary students who are struggling readers, but at the same time, we want to help get them to that proficient reader, and we don't want to live in just teaching them second grade content or third grade content. We need to get them to the content that we are doing within the classroom, but we want to do this in a very scaffolded and systematic way. And so one way to be able to do that is to help them gain that fluency utilizing multiple syllables. So you can see here we have an AI with one syllable, a Y with one syllable, but then we go into 2 syllables. And in some cases, we do provide you 3-syllable words as well. Now, this is handy for you as a teacher. This is not something for your students to sit there and memorize, but this is for you as a teacher to be able to practice with phonology. So we are focusing on hearing those individual sounds. So if I was working with students, I would have this paper to myself, and then I would tell them to take out a whiteboard, and then I might have them listen for sounds. And I would say, all right, tell me, how many sounds do you hear in the following word? Paid, paid. Segment those sounds. P, A, D. How many sounds? 3 sounds. All right, I want you to tap it out. Ready? P, A, D. Now I want you to write it. And in this case, you would write P, A, D. Now, obviously, you would do this after you have already taught the AI and AY, and you've modeled this process for them, but you're wanting to build that practice. So in the very beginning, you could go ahead and have them listening for those sounds and stretching them out and writing them down. Or you could just have them listening for those sounds and even building some of those words. So one of the other resources that I provide for community members is not going to be the box, so don't get excited. But inside of this box, which I actually shared this as some resources that literacy teachers need to have to help support their readers, is going to be a box with letters. And so what I would typically do is when I am teaching a specific pattern, I would have my letter cards all ready to go for students. So let's say I'm working on paid. They might take out their letters and have them ready to go, but then I might have them build in. So paid, and then I would have them stretch it out. P, A, D. 3 sounds. So I need to have each of those represented. So I would do P. And then I have it to where each letter is just a vowel. So they would just build their AI and AY. And then we would see the spelling there. So they could build it, they could sound it out, they could stretch out the sounds, but they're practicing building those in the very beginning. So that might just be the first day, and we would focus on doing that and then pulling out our text. Now, here's what I like about these texts. Again, they're very intentional to be a progression for the vowel teams that you're going to find from predictable to unpredictable. So we're not going to have any other words in there that are not decodable for your students. So in the very beginning, what I would do is present my students with a blank copy like this. And in the very beginning, I might have them just focus on one paragraph. And if you needed to, you could always just fold that and say, guys, we are only focusing on this one paragraph today. And we're going to build up our fluency and our accuracy as we start to work through the remainder of the text for the rest of the week or for the next 3 days or however long you decide to work on this passage with students. And what they would end up doing is that they would then find the AI and AY words and highlight them. So in this example here, I would have them highlight train and main and rainy and May and train. So they would look for each of those patterns in the words in that passage. And then I would have them build that accuracy. Now, to build accuracy, a lot of the times what we've done in the past is as teachers, we have simply told kids, hey, I want you to whisper read and I'm just going to listen to you and see how you're doing. And then I'm going to have you think about it. Well, this was the old way of doing it. And now to build accuracy with students, what we need to do is just check, are they reading it right? And in order to know if they're reading it right, we need to be able to hear them all at one time. And so what I like to do with students now is to have them put their finger under the first word. And I would say, finger under the first word, think. And when I tap, you're going to all say the word. 1, next word, think. Rainy, next word, think. Day, next word, think. In, next word, think. May, next word, think. Jane, next word, think. Sat, next word, think. On, next word, think. A. train, reading, a book. One rainy day in May, Jane sat on a train reading a book. Now, as a teacher, once we get through a sentence, I'm going to model the fluency because I've already checked for accuracy. So now I'm going to have them hear what it sounds like to read that fluently. And we would do that for the remainder of that paragraph. But then the key here is, and this is where we often fail as teachers, is that we don't provide enough time for building fluency. And when we think about a ratio of it, 80% of that time should be just building fluency. 20% of it is focused on accuracy. So this 20% of the time that we're focusing on making sure that we can read the words correctly, now I need to have them go back and practice that multiple times to themselves. So I would say, now I want you to whisper read this passage to yourself. And you can use whisper phones or anything that you would like for them to do, or they could just whisper it to themselves as they read it. But we're practicing building that fluency, which is what we end up needing to see with our kids. So you can think of these activities in kind of this progression in the way that we support students. So maybe in the very beginning, you're having kids really just listening to and segmenting and tapping out those sounds, and then writing those sounds, attaching it to graphemes, building those words with the phoneme or the letter cards that you see here, the grapheme cards, apologies, that you see there, and then you're having them read a little bit. Well, the next day, you're going to kind of add on to that. Maybe the next day, you're going to do something a little bit different. So one of the other resources that we have is that we have cards. Now, with these cards here, you're going to see that they have words on them. Now, they can be used for sorting. So they would put the AI and all the A and Y words together, and then you could have them quickly read it. So you would say trailer, aid, pair, may, maybe, and then it builds that fluency and that accuracy of reading those words. Now, what's nice is that these words are found here. So it's going to be a great way to kind of support them going back and reading as well. So that could be another activity that you did on the second day. And then what you could have them do is on that second day, go back and reread that for checking for that fluency and that accuracy. And then you're going to do the same thing with the next paragraph. So it's broken down in a way that just makes it so much easier for and attainable for them to teach, because having kids sit down and trying to read this entire page, whoo, that's a lot. And for struggling readers, that's really a lot for them. And that's hard for them too. So we want to make it as scaffolded enough in a sense that's going to support them to feeling confident and feeling like really good readers when they leave your classroom. That is always the goal. Okay, so the next time that you do it, you might also just have students do some speed reading. These are also great activities that are very easily incorporated into a literacy center. So for speed reading, you would just have them read the words as fast as they could. Paid, slay, say, explain, drain, away, blackmail, replay, detain, waitress, subway, playtime, decay, hayride, hangnail, doorway, painful, frail, layer, maybe. So getting them practicing those words. But then on the other side, you also have phrases that you can have them practice as well. And this just helps to build in that fluency that we need students to be able to build. So you can see that there's a lot of different activities for students. The final thing that I have inside of this resource are going to be sentences, because one of the other things that we want students to be able to do is become writers. We want them to be fluent readers, but we also want them to be very fluent writers as well. So not only can you have all the resources to be able to practice and build your lessons and build some of that accuracy, that fluency, that automaticity, but then you can have them write the sentences as well. And so when I do this with my students, I keep this paper to myself and then I would read the sentence. So I would say, okay, ready? Here we go. The drain has a hair in it. The drain has a hair in it. All right, I would say, everybody, what's the sentence? The drain has a hair in it. Perfect. I want you to pound it out as you say each word. Ready? Here we go. The drain has a hair in it. That's called word boundaries, making sure that students are able to hear individual words within a big sentence. And a lot of the times when students struggle with word boundaries, they're focusing more on the syllables rather than the actual word. So we would have them pound it out, and then I would say, now I want you to draw a line for each word on your whiteboard. Make sure you're keeping enough space and a line big enough to write the word. So I would say, the drain has a hair in it. And then I would say, tap it. The drain has a hair in it. The reason that I'm doing this is to get students practicing and hearing and remembering and holding that within their working memory of what it is that they're supposed to be writing. Because a lot of the times students, where the hang up gets with students in writing is that they can't remember what it is that they're supposed to be writing. They just said it a minute ago, but now they can't remember it. And we're practicing in all these different ways to make sure that they remember the sentence that they're writing. And then I would say, now I want you to pick up your marker and write. So the drain has a hair in it. And I would say, check for a period, check for a capital letter. And I always say, I want to see a 5-star sentence, meaning I want to see a capital letter, I want to see appropriate spacings, I want to see the best spelling, and when I'm teaching a spelling pattern, they need to spell it correctly. I want to see a period at the end of it, and I want to make sure that it makes sense. So I want to see a 5-star. If they do, they get 5 points on their whiteboard. So it's a very simple way, and having the sentences ready to go makes it to where I don't have to think of it as a teacher, and I can just pull out this resource and be able to use it with my students. So each of the resources or the decodables that are inside of the community have all of these same exact resources. So in this other one, this is called the Snowy Meadow. You can see it has the sorting cards that you can do one day. It has the passages for the students, has a way for you to look at the various words and practice with phonemic awareness and blending those sounds and segmenting those sounds, and also writing them as well, because you could just do some writing practice with those individual words. And then you also have it with your phrases and also the words for speed reading as well. Now, I know we went through these activities rather quickly, but one of the trainings that I have within the community is the Hear It, See It, Read It, Write It method. And the Hear It, See It, Read It, Write It method is also going to align really well with the resources that you see here. So we always want to hear the sounds first. We want to be able to see the sounds either through reading them or writing them or blending them with looking at the graphemes. Then we want to read it, and then we want to write it. So if we follow this progression of hear it, see it, read it, write it, then students are going to feel very confident in going into the text that they are reading and really acquiring those skills that we want them to be able to acquire as proficient readers. So hopefully this video has given you some ideas for what you can do within your small group to support those struggling readers, or for supporting any of your readers inside of your classroom. Because the Hear It, See It, Read It, Write It method isn't just great for vowel teams or basic phonics instruction. It could also help to support you when it comes to more advanced phonics and also morphology as you start to lead into morphology in the upper elementary grade levels. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe if you have not already, and hit that notification bell so you can get notified when I upload a brand new video. Thanks so much for watching. I would love to hear your thoughts on any of these activities, and I will catch you all next time. Bye.